The US government shuts down, but life keeps moving. Markets barely blinked, and neither did we. Maybe that's the real lesson here. We can thrive without Washington. Everyday life continues, proving resilience is in our nature. So what does this mean for us? It's a reminder that we hold the power, not just the politicians. Let's embrace this moment and keep pushing forward.
Topic 1. U.S. government shuts down for the first time in nearly 7 years. Your take.
Yeah, so the news on this at 12:01 Eastern Time on October 1st, the federal government shut down. Now, first of all, let's clarify, shutdown doesn't mean actually shut down. Most of the government, or a large chunk of it, is still operating. Other parts of it are operating and people will get back pay later. And, a variety of discretionary programs and agencies got shut down. It did furlough 900,000 federal employees, which is a fraction of the federal workforce, delayed payments to another 700,000. We remind people that essential services like Medicare, Social Security, air traffic control, national defense continue under statutory authority. So it's not so much of a shutdown. The thing that I think is really interesting, Howard, is both sides, Democrats and Republicans, are supportive of the shutdown. Republicans are not getting grief from their constituents. What I think is really interesting is big Democratic donors went to their representatives and said, do not give in, shut it down. So both sides getting a lot of support. On the Democratic side, they do not want to give in to President Trump. They don't want spending cuts. On the Republican side, they don't want to finance an additional $1.5 trillion for an extension of what were supposed to be temporary funding measures to healthcare insurance. And somehow the whole thing has really come down, like the big headlines relate to Democrats saying we will shut down the government because we want funding for people in the country illegally for their health care, which is making a lot of the country angry. Now, on my end, I actually agree with both sides. I am super supportive of the shutdown, but for two different reasons. First, I think it's valuable for most of the country to have a regular reminder that we can operate our lives without constant government supervision. Like, great. Let's do this for a month or two and remind everybody that we don't need a nanny government to operate our lives. Second, President Trump now has the leeway to reduce the federal workforce on his own, something Doge wanted to do more of when Elon Musk was there. So I'm going to remind everybody that our federal workforce is larger than the population of 10 individual states. The Democrats somehow handed President Trump the authority to do what he wanted Elon Musk to do. This is an opportunity. I'm hoping there will be significant cuts. Now, I do have one piece of bad news, Howard, which is I can promise everybody watching this that the government will continue to spend more every year, take on more debt, and debase the dollar. This shutdown is theater. It's not going to stop that. So the only thing you can do is invest in such a way that you are insulated from more inflation. That's our approach. We can be angry or not angry, but the debasement will continue. However, the one thing I'm curious about is, do you think this affects the property market either in the South Florida area where you are or in the United States in general?
So the answer is that it can. It really depends on the length of the shutdown, because there's going to be significant stress on all governmental agencies, especially working for no pay or being furloughed in general. So getting approvals, I have a deal that just started this morning and executed, and we need significant governmental approvals, both in county and city. So I'd imagine that if the shutdown is shorter, then we're not going to see that much of a hiccup. But if this goes into weeks, that adds a multiple of weeks to anything on the backlog. And it's not like they're all going to race right back in there and catch up immediately. This is the speed of government. So I think it's a catch. There's a lot you have to look at with this. The longer it goes, the harder it's going to get. And if it gums up the system, and right now we have pent up transactions, all that's going to do is cause people to second guess their transactions. You'll see people fall out of them or businesses fall out of them. So I'm not saying gloom and doom. I'm saying that the longer it goes, the harder it gets to keep things on track.
I think that's a really interesting point. And last week, there's a blog that I read about antitrust. Basically, it's all legal stuff. And one of the things that was pointed out is somehow people who want to get mergers done manage to have the antitrust regulators able to approve new mergers, but not challenge existing mergers. And basically, I mean, it's the analysis was, hey, somehow people with money found a way to ensure that the transactions they wanted approved got approved. The transactions they don't want impeded can't be impeded. And the transactions that you are working on personally, Howard, nobody cares whether those get done or not. So that's not going to happen. I will add one positive from all of this, and I'm in no way suggesting that the negative you pointed out is not significant. It is. But a lot of the fiat economists, and I do use that term with derision, they were wailing last week that the shutdown is going to harm GDP growth. And I'm going to point out again that wasteful government spending does add to GDP the way we calculate it, while often destroying value. That's not real value, right? So the government spending less money, yes, it will bring GDP down, but is it really harming production? And the answer to that is no. And I think that's the reason the stock market shrugged and spent every day since the shutdown up.
Well, all I can tell you is, as somebody with $1 million transactions as opposed to $1 billion transactions, it is frustrating on our level not to know certainty and be able to rely on certain things happening. But it's not doom and gloom. Business is still moving forward. I will be back in touch with you within weeks and let you know whether or not this is coming to fruition or not.
Or maybe you should just tell your clients that if they were to switch from $1 million transactions to $1 billion transactions, you could get them approved.